The Sierra Nevada mountains rise a few miles to the east, and the hills of the Virginia Range are to the west and even closer. At the very moment this photographic plate was exposed, the Virginia Range was being hollowed out for copper. Regiments of men were digging through cave-ins and explosions, mining bigger and bigger cavities in the earth. None of this activity is captured by Fissure Vent, as the image is titled, nor is the molten rock that lies 1,000 feet down, propelling steam up through crystalline cracks in the earth, so fast as to cause the ground itself to rumble. An engine-like sound that in the 1860s earned the fumarole a nickname, Steamboat Springs. Also not pictured is the nearby resort, built to exploit the adjacent hot springs. The springs were well known to the northern Paiute and Washoe peoples, who, after pointing them out to settlers, were themselves now being monitored by white militias and by U.S. soldiers at nearby forts. If this picture seems to have less to say about resorts and leisure and more about violence, if it resembles a rift or a scar or even a wound, note that the man who made it had recently arrived in Nevada as an employee of the U.S. Army. Note too that from 1861 through 1865, he had served as a photographer alongside the Union Army, following the troops as they fought against the Confederate soldiers in the eastern United States. For the Army, he photographed maps and views of potential battle sites, and for publishers, he photographed soldiers and battlefields and dead bodies. His pictures alternately depict the mundane and the horrifying, and together they make up what are today the most widely known images of the war. The photographer's name was Timothy O'Sullivan. To make this image of the fumarole, O'Sullivan used a camera that looked less like what we think of today as a picture-making device, a camera or a smartphone, and more like a large, light-proof wooden box, the size of an old TV set or a mini-fridge. The front punctuated by a heavy brass lens, the polished glass protruding like a cross between a nose and an eye. Inside the box, in the darkness of its light-proof interior, a rectangular plate of glass waited like an empty movie screen for the light that would be focused through the lens, in this instance, light reflecting off a jagged valley floor in the winter of 1867. If you ever looked up at a beam of light from a movie projector or noticed a sunrise flashing on a bedroom wall, you know that light is alive or appears to be. In order to capture the light of that very day and then to hold onto it, to construct, in other words, an image using that 1867 Nevada winter light, O'Sullivan covered his photographic plate with collodion, a nearly clear, syrupy liquid that was then further treated with a solution of light-sensitive silver nitrate. The method was, and still is, referred to as the wet plate collodion process. Collodion was employed in various other capacities around the time of the Civil War. It was used as a liquid bandage. When smeared on broken skin and allowed to dry, it patched up cuts and lacerations. The essential ingredient in collodion is nitrocellulose, also known as gun cotton, which was made by treating cotton with sulfuric and nitric acids. Gun cotton was an explosive used to power some of the artillery shells that cratered the battlefields O'Sullivan photographed. My point being that the same materials that offer us a view of this fumarole in the aftermath of what is referred to today as the Civil War were key ingredients in that very war. The cotton picked by enslaved people on southern plantations and the silver extracted from mines blasted out of indigenous lands. When O'Sullivan removed the lens cover, the ingredients were, by a timed-out entrance of light, exposed. To the west, Timothy O'Sullivan is America's most famous war photographer, a man whose photographs you most likely know even if you don't know his name. In 1867, when he made this image of the fumarole, O'Sullivan had just arrived in the Great Basin to begin documenting a journey across an expanse of land that would, when he finished almost 8 years later,